how does that occur? Like what?
Well, that's
What exactly are salt problems?
You can have the actual salts, and it could be a sodium buildup that comes either in the organic formulation or the conventional material. The excess sodium in the soil that your soil loses some of its ability to utilize water the way it used to, and it also impacts its ability and exchange ability to absorb up different nutrition from the soil itself or the materials that you're applying. So that's why we get concerned about salt buildup from using certain materials. Improperly composted manures can have a high salt levels, and that given they're applied over time, they can cause those sorts of problems.
No.
So that's why we encourage, to have kind of a good baseline soil sample taken every 2 to 4 years, so you can see what changes may or may not be occurring, and to be able to take samples, close to the tree where most of the fertilizers are applied, banded along the trees, not broadcast over the whole orchard floor. So you can end up with, if you took your samples out in the middle of the row, you can have different pH levels out here versus right next to the tree, and you can have different levels, 1 foot down, 6 inches down, or 2 feet down, and so there will be different types of tests that soil samples that you want to keep monitoring to see what those levels are over time. And part of the any fertilizer program is you also have to have a good irrigation monitoring system also, so that you don't flush the soluble contents of the fertilizer that you just applied and flush it through the root zone. Most of the trees, most of the roots that you need to be careful of are in the top 2 feet. In the bigger orchards, maybe 3 feet down. That's your kind of usable soil area, and you want to make sure you don't put on 48 hours of water and flush all the nutrition through that soil below the roots, and then you cause leaching problems from there.
Oh. Well, you answered 2 of my questions without even asking them. So that's really interesting that you can actually rinse it down below the roots.
The way we had a teacher explain it to us, the soil is like a sponge, and if you pour a certain amount of water into this sponge, it will hold it. But eventually that sponge will fill up, and then the water will come out the bottom. And so if you use that mindset of, I've got a foot of topsoil or 2 feet of topsoil, and you know what your irrigation system is able to deliver in a 12-hour period, and say, okay, I got wetting down 1 foot, or did I get wetting down 2 feet, and then you want to be monitoring that and adjusting that to the temperatures that you're getting. Because again, it's that sponge. You have the tree that's drawing, the root system's drawing the water out of that sponge. Hot weather draws more water sooner. Cool weather, just not as, the evaporation isn't as intense, and so you don't just, I got water in the ditch in the 1st of April, I'm going to put 24-hour set every week on my trees because I'm on an easy schedule, and that's not a good way to do it. So.
It's always a careful and precise work, right?
Well, you aim towards that, and you want to make sure what are you doing each year? Is it an improvement of what you used to do? Does it need improving? And that's why you do certain soil tests every year or every every other year to kinda, and you wanna monitor how much growth did I get on my trees? Am I getting enough? Was it my pruning not as much as I needed? Was my irrigation where I needed it? Was my nutrition level where I needed it? And a number of growers, also there's a lot of what we'll call foliar nutrients that we can apply through our sprayers and put it on the leaves, and it's easier, faster to absorb up and to tweak some of the micronutrient levels in the tree. Those materials cost more to apply, but the big driving force is ground applied fertilizer. That's probably been another big change probably in the last 10 years is we notice if we don't get a tree growing well in its first year or two, it's off to a bad start, and it's hard to recover from that. So people who, in a sense, added, the main irrigation systems that are in place here, under tree, small little spinner type sprinklers, and it irrigates the tree in the grass, and we used to fertilize young trees, with a little tuna fish can, and okay, we got some fertilizer around that tree, it's good. And I did that a couple times last summer, it's good. Well, people who put in drip systems that they have drippers every 18 inches, the water pattern was more uniform, and they could also inject liquid fertilizers into those systems and get them, they could just, in a sense, spoon feed it. And people saw that they got a lot better, more uniform growth. Some people say, well, I don't have the money to do that other system, and it's just like, well, can you afford not to? They're going to be in full production by year 4 or year 5. You won't get in full production till year 7 or 10, or maybe you'll never get into full production just because your trees are stunted. And so those are the things that orcharding is very capital intensive, and you need to make sure you have the capital to adapt to the changes that are coming, that are here already, and to maintain your competitiveness, to make sure you're a good place to come to work for, that you've got good crops that paid bills.
That's all the questions we had for you.
Okay. Well, hopefully you
I definitely learned a lot.
more, and good luck with the rest of your class, and your interviewing experience is good, and I hope you enjoy it.